Welcome to the first new game of the first full year of the Nintendo Switch 2. It's Mario Tennis. Oh boy. I'm gonna be honest here, Mario Tennis is probably my least favorite of the sports series. Although to be fair, I haven't played enough of Strikers yet to fully judge it though, so it might be my least favorite. And Tennis's less than stellar track record doesn't help much. But hey, maybe Mario Tennis Fever will be the one to turn things around for this sinking ship of a sub-series. But before that, I feel like it's relevant to give my overall history with the Mario Tennis series, just so you kind of get my mindset going into this. I really haven't played very much of this series, like at all. I've played maybe a combined few hours across all of the games. The first one I ever played was more than likely the new Play Control version of Power Tennis, but that wasn't my copy of the game, so I didn't really get into it very much. Now, I actually own the GameCube version, which I also haven't played very much. I don't know why, I just haven't. Then I played Mario's Tennis on the Virtual Boy for like 15 minutes for an older video. Definitely on the original hardware. And I've also played Aces for a few minutes, but again, not my copy. And then I played Ultra Smash. So as you can probably tell, I haven't played much Mario Tennis. But will Mario Tennis Fever be the one to hook me? Will I catch Mario Tennis Fever? You'll just have to wait and find out. I'll be covering all of the different modes in the game, and at the end, I'll determine whether or not Mario Tennis Fever is what the doctor ordered. The box art is decent, it's basically all you can really do for a Mario Tennis game, but these renders are so highly detailed for no reason. You can literally count the individual threads in Mario's socks. The inner case art is always one of my most anticipated things with modern Nintendo game physical releases these days. I mean, we don't get game manuals anymore, so what else am I supposed to look forward to? The game itself? No way. Although it's really annoying now since the Switch 2 has red game cases, making it way harder to actually see the artwork without removing it from the case. And this game's is fine, I guess. It's just Mario getting burnt, so nothing too special, honestly. Okay, that's enough about the superfluous stuff that doesn't really matter. Let's get into the game itself. This is the menu, and I'll be discussing all 6 modes featured on the left here. I'm skipping the stuff over on the right because it's all pretty boring. Online play, game share, and achievements. The achievements are kind of weird though, because on one hand, you've got the medals, which look more like actual achievements, but then the things that are actually labeled as achievements are just the criteria to unlock stuff, like Baby Wario. I'll be going in an order that feels best in my opinion, so starting with basic tennis and then going from there. Free play is probably the mode you'll be playing the most, since it's like the main tennis mode. There's a ton of customization in the game. You can choose how many fever rackets you want to use, singles or doubles, and a bunch of other stuff that I don't really get. And for the courts, there's actually a good variety, however they're all just reskins for the most part. Like, yeah, the ball probably bounces differently on different terrain, but it's Mario Tennis, so I don't really care. The character roster is also pretty good, with there being 38 different characters to choose from. And I like how, with all of the unlockables in the game, it tells you what requirements you have to complete in order to unlock the things. It's a really simple but useful addition. It saves me from having to do the oh-so-terrible task of going to the dedicated unlockable section. The main thing that'll change up the gameplay though are the various fever rackets, which are basically the replacements of character-specific powers from previous games. Doing a bunch of something, I don't really know, causes this gauge to fill up at the top of the screen, and whenever it's full, you press X to pull off a fever shot. Aren't those just vaccines? These will basically use a specific power-up, like fire, fire, and fire. There's definitely a good variety, although a lot of them do look and sound similar when you aren't actively seeing them. Like there's multiple fire rackets that, yes, are all vastly different when you are actually using them, but it does kind of feel a little bit repetitive, just like on the selection screen. But I do like the fever rackets. It makes it so you can basically play as whoever you want without having to take their special moves into account. But as the main gimmick and selling point, I don't really think it's that great. It's basically just reusing something that was in past games in a slightly different way and giving it a name that reminds me of going to the doctor. And I actually found the tennis gameplay to be pretty fun, which is surprising because, like I've said, I haven't really gotten into any of the previous games. It is just tennis though, so you'll be going back and forth hitting the ball until you inevitably mess up because you're trying to hit a button and move at the same time. Each face button on the controller does a different shot. To be honest, I can't really tell the difference. Maybe I'm just really dumb, but they all kind of look and feel the same to me. The fever rackets make this much less skillful, however, which I personally like. It feels a lot more like Mario Party or Mario Kart with the amount of chaos that can happen. Although some of the rackets are pretty annoying, like the volcano racket needs to go. If the ball lands on your side, a little volcano thingy will spawn which shoots out fireballs. They're just really frustrating to avoid, but there is nothing more satisfying in this game than hitting the ball back and causing the fever effect to go to your opponent's side. My favorite racket though, at least right now, is the shadow racket. It basically creates a temporary clone, so it's pretty unfair for your opponent. So now it's either a 2v1 or a 3v2. And if you're boring, you can get rid of the fever rackets, which is a necessary addition, I guess. Not everybody wants Mario Tennis to feel like a Mario Tennis game, but like at that point, just go buy whatever the generic realistic tennis game that's out there is. One last thing to note here, and I'm circling back to the characters for a second, Baby Waluigi is real. I'm genuinely really happy about this. Waluigi was the one glaring omission in terms of babies, so to see him finally rise to the ranks of infancy is a really great thing to see. Plus, his existence makes more sense lore-wise than Baby Rosalina's. Can we get him and Baby Wario in Mario Kart, please? And I got a comment asking for 4 hours of Baby Waluigi. I'm sorry, I cannot achieve that, so here's 4 seconds. I hope it'll suffice. Now this is where things start to get a little bit more interesting. Mix It Up basically has a handful of different tennis game modes to choose from. And it's here where the gimmicky courts are. Starting with ring shot, you just have to get the ball through the rings. It's okay, but I am terrible at it. Forest court match is slightly more interesting. There's patches of grass that are considered in while the dirt is out. And that's the least interesting part. There's piranha plants that will come out of the ground and they'll eat the tennis balls and then spit them back out. It's okay. Pinball match is pretty cool. I really like how they're leaning into the Waluigi pinball thing as of late, with it coming back in 8 Deluxe, Waluigi's Jamboree Buddy minigame in Super Mario Party Jamboree, and now this. This mode basically just implements a bunch of pinball mechanics and stuff into tennis, like the bumpers and other things. I don't really know anything about pinball. The Racket Factory match is really unique. Basically, different fever rackets will appear on the court, so your moves are always changing. It's neat in concept, but I don't really feel like I have enough time to charge up the fever gauge and use the ability before a different racket appears. And lastly, there's the Wonder Court match, easily my favorite just due to the aesthetics. I still cannot say that word. Super Mario Bros. Wonder is my favorite 2D Mario game, so I was pretty excited to see this court get revealed. It doesn't really change the gameplay too much. The only thing is that a wonder effect will occur once per game. My only complaint here is that there's only 3. Piranha Plants on Parade, the Hoppos, and Spikes. The points are also replaced with Wonder Seeds, which don't really change much at all. You still get them the way you get regular points, although doing certain things during the Wonder events will get you Wonder Seeds, meaning that the games can end pretty quickly if you know what you're doing. In addition to those game modes, there's also a few of these point-based minigames that I don't really feel like talking about. My only issue here is that you can't use the fever rackets during these modes. Why? Unless I'm missing something, there's just no way to use them. So you take away the main gimmick of the game for seemingly no reason. I suppose it could get too chaotic, but isn't that the whole point of them to begin with? To be chaotic? It doesn't matter too much because the gimmicks of the courts kind of make up for that, but it's still a little bit disappointing. Have you ever wanted really bad and annoying Wii Sports Tennis? First of all, why? Second of all, here you go. Swing mode is, as the name makes it clear, a mode where you swing a Joy-Con 2 controller instead of using buttons. I'm sorry, but this just does not function well in my opinion at all. In Wii Sports, the motion controls worked because that was a way more simple version of tennis. Here, where there's so many different moves and techniques, it's just way too complicated for motion controls. I'm sure there's someone out there who could figure it out and get really good at it, but that someone is just not me. They limited the fever rackets here too, so you don't have the whole collection at your disposal. Personal racket, shadow racket, ghost racket, bullet bill racket, inky racket, and the boomerang racket are what's available. I get it, I guess. It's already incredibly awkward to play this mode, so adding the more insane fever rackets would have made it even more discombobulating. I'd stick to to the button modes personally. It's just way more playable that way, and it's clear that the game was designed for that first and foremost. I guess I could see this being fun with friends, you know, it's just kind of random and chaos. That doesn't help me though. Moving on. Tower of Trials is basically a bunch of different challenges spread across 3 different towers. Wow. I haven't finished a single one yet because I'm kind of rushing to get this video done. Anyway, I heard that after you complete all of the towers, there's 100 more challenges to complete, which is pretty cool, and that is a ton of content, and it's simple for them to develop at that. I honestly wouldn't mind seeing new trials added as post-launch content or something. For free though, I'm not paying for that. You've made it this far into the video, so I'd really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. I'm trying to hit 8,000 subscribers before the Super Mario Galaxy movie releases in just over a month, so I'd really appreciate your help. Thanks. Now back to the Italian Man Racket Sport Illness game for the sequel to the Nintendo Switch family of systems system. Tournaments are tournaments. There's 3 for both singles and doubles. They're okay, I guess, but I mean, like, it's hard to mess up something like this, I guess. But they kind of did because they just drag on for so long. It legitimately felt like it would never end when I was doing the single star cut. Like, I thought it was about to finally say championship point, but it just kept going. I was about to lose my mind because there were so many instances where it was like I was about to lose, it felt like, but then I got the advantage and I was like, oh, I'm about to win, and then it just kept going. It was all worth it though. So Mario Tennis Fever has an adventure mode. Cool. It starts with a Daisy being sick. Oh, darn. What, does she have a Mario Tennis Fever? Ha 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 ha. It's no laughing matter. It's usually fatal. Anyway, all of these licensed doctors figure out that the only thing that cures Mario Tennis Fever is a golden fruit apple thing, and it grows in a cave for some reason. Sure. Skip forward past some boring stuff, and wow, Wario and Waluigi end up unleashing some monsters as well as some fuzzies. And said monsters turn Mario, Luigi, Peach, Wario, and Waluigi into babies. When you actually put thought into that, it's genuinely horrifying. And they aren't mentally babies either, no. They remember and understand everything. There are so many things to panic over now. Bowser can easily take over. They're gonna have to live life all over again. They're essentially guaranteed to see everyone that they know and care about die. And the scariest of all, they can't play tennis as well now. The horror. Like, of all things to be worried about, my tennis skills being gone would be the least of my concerns. So the first half of this adventure mode is all tutorial, and they do it in such a boring way. You just do a minigame, go to this toad, use the thing you learned from the minigame, waddle to another area of the tennis academy, do a minigame, go back to Toad, use your new skill. It's just so obnoxiously tedious. And there's a handful of things that shake it up a bit, but those boil down to taking quizzes and regular tennis matches. It's just not that fun. And like, the whole concept of having to relearn tennis makes no sense because they remember literally everything that has happened to them up until this point, but I guess except their tennis abilities. Like, sure, I guess they wouldn't be as good at tennis because they're infants, but like, they should still know what all the different kinds of shots are. Anyway, once you rank up to A rank, you go against Wario and Waluigi again, and then you do the graduation tournament. Basically just 3 matches in a row. After that, you're finally in the actual adventure portion of the adventure mode. It starts with another round against Wario and Waluigi, who now use the Fire Fever Racket, and after you win, they commit arson. Toad is like, oh yeah, here's the most efficient way to put out the fire. Water bubbles that you hit with the tennis rackets. Sure, I guess. I mean, that'll work. Then you do some more tennis-based fire extinguishing minigames that are a little annoying, to be honest. And it's also revealed that Wario and Waluigi are working for Bowser. They're doing this so he'll let them use his minions to fight the monsters that turned them into babies. I don't really see why this is a bad thing. They basically have the exact same goal. Bowser wants to turn Peach back into an adult because he thinks she'll fall in love with him. Despite technically being considered a politician since he's a king, he's a fictional politician, so he at least has some morals. Anyway, then there's a boss fight against Bowser's Airship, which is pretty cool, and Wario and Waluigi die. At least it looks that way. I never thought a Mario Tennis game would make me cry. Tears of sadness, not fear. The good guys basically crash land on this island, and inside the island is an ice cave with a pretty disorienting layout. It's basically a maze. There's some typhoons that you have to defeat in order to progress. And you obviously defeat them by hitting bats back at them. Does PETA know about this? After you reach the end, there's a boss fight against a flame chomp who gets turned into an ice chomp by eating the fever racket. This game is so weird. After that's done, Donkey Kong shows up for some reason and helps you leave the cave. Just the way Donkey Kong would. Alright, this is taking too long. Speedrun time. Boss fight against the Cheep chomp where you knock fish back into it. Again, PETA needs to get on this so they can euthanize all of the animals. Then you fight an electric Cheep chomp. It's the same story. Now you're in a forest, fight piranha plants and piranha creepers, then fight Petey Piranha. Another match against the Wario Bros. Now you go into a forest and knock dead trees over. Then you make a raft, fight these snake enemies from 3D World, fight against the boss snake enemy from 3D World. So this means this thing can like cross dimensions at will, I guess, since it's originally from the whatever it was called in 3D World, that dimension. And after tons of text, you make it to the Valley of Monsters. There's a few fights against the dark fog cloud monster things by knocking fuzzies at them. Those aren't technically animals, so PETA can sit this one out. You then find that the baby transforming monsters are the Scuttlebug enemies from like Mario 64. That is so weird. They've never been given this power before, but okay, sure. After you defeat that one, Luigi turns back to normal. More fuzzy battles, another Scuttlebug fight, Peach gets restored. Bowser then teams up with King Scuttlebug to use its power. Oh no, it's time for the final boss. The best part of this final boss is when you rally Bowser in his shell. It's just pretty cool to knock it back and forth. Once it's defeated, Mario's back to normal, the day is saved. And there's not even dedicated credits music. And that's it, that's the adventure mode. It was okay. There was just way too much tutorial, and by the time it started to get kind of interesting, it was over. Its existence is only justified by Baby Waluigi. The boss fights are pretty good though, I guess. I mean, it was kind of cool to see these 3D World enemies come back after not being in anything for like 13 years now, I guess. If I had to give it a letter grade, I would give it a C. It could have been worse, but it could have been so much better. Here's a few things I forgot to mention because I'm dumb. Here's the amiibo support. It's better than Mario Tennis Ultra Smashes, I guess, if only because it's more unique and doesn't rip the idea straight from Smash Bros. All it does is give you a unique ball, like the texture of the ball is different. So you get a Mario ball if you scan a Mario amiibo, a Wario ball for Wario, so on and so forth. It's far from the most exciting or interesting amiibo implementation. However, I think it's fine. You're not locking essential or in-depth content behind these figures, but at the same time, you're not really giving people who have several anything interesting to look forward to. It's really difficult to balance that. You can't like give too much, but you can't give too little. So they just said, here's a tennis ball. Who wants a video ranking all amiibo balls in Mario Tennis Fever? The boomerang racket is exclusive to swing mode for some reason. Okay. The visuals are really clean and I never noticed any frame dips like I heard some reviewers state. But then again, I'm not one of the biggest frame rate noticers by any means, so it could have dipped a few times and I didn't notice. I'm sure it would go down in doubles with a ton of fever effects going on though, but I never really did that. The talking flower is in the game as a commentator. I really like that. But guys, even as big of a talking flower defender that I am, I have to be honest here. He kind of got on my nerves in this game, I'm sorry. See, in Mario Wonder, his debut game, each time you'd approach one, it would say something completely unique and different. Here in Mario Tennis Fever, it's the same lines over and over again. I can't tell you how many times I've heard it's about time for a fever shot or something about a high ball piercing the sky. I still like the talking flower. I'm going to purchase that little figure eventually, but like, he was just irritating here, I'm sorry. There's the whole reused animation debacle. Most characters reuse their intro animations from Mario Tennis Aces, which yes, that is objectively cheap and lazy. There's no getting around that. But at the same exact time, who really cares? Truly, if you're normal, you just skip the animations every single time anyway, so why does it matter? The only people that seem to care are those YouTube channels that post hundreds of Switch 2 hate videos daily. Like, I swear they'll get angry if Miyamoto sneezes or something. It's kind of embarrassing. Yes, new animations would have been way better, but it's such a non-issue in my opinion. I'm just gonna mash the A button to start the game sooner regardless, with or without new animations. A new gameplay mechanic that I forgot was the fact that you can die. If you take enough damage, your character will have to take a rest, at least in doubles anyway. In singles, nothing really happens as far as I can tell, but this is the only tennis game with a death toll. This is the second tennis game with a death toll, and the music's pretty good, but it is just Mario Tennis music, so it sounds pretty similar to previous entries and doesn't stand out that much. Everybody stay calm, but I'm about to praise Mario Tennis Ultra Smash. That game actually has some pretty decent music. I think the world is ending. And that was my review of Mario Tennis Fever, which is by far my favorite Mario Tennis game now. Oh yeah, because the competition was just so steep. I guess the Tennis Fever infected me, because I really enjoyed this game, at least compared to what I thought I would. I thought it would just be another mediocre 6 out of 10 experience like the last handful of sports games were. But no, I'd honestly argue that this is the best Mario sports game since Golf World Tour on the 3DS. Is it a perfect masterpiece by any means? Oh, absolutely not. It's still just a tennis game, and I doubt it's going to win many awards. But it's just a really fun time, and I hope there's some post-launch content planned. The game doesn't necessarily need it, since it is content complete in my opinion, but it would still be good to see, especially if it's free to kind of help justify the expensive price tag at least a little bit more. Sure, $70 is the standard AAA game price nowadays, but like, it's Mario Tennis. I feel like they could have priced it at $60 and been fine. But whatever, I only paid $63 for my copy. I'm just so frugal. Let me know what you think of this game in the video in the comments. And wait a second, I just had a realization. Mario Tennis Fever is not a good game. It's missing the best Mario Tennis mode from the entire series. Where's Mega Battle? And that broke the case.